Welcome. I see you all coming in. We'll just keep on chit-chatting until you come in. I want to welcome everyone to today's Women in Leadership webinar. My name is Stephanie Howard. I am lecturer of marketing in the Stetson Hatcher School of Business, as well as director of the Mercer Innovation Center. And I'll be your moderator today, and very excited about our amazing speaker today. We have Ann Kelly. Ann is Director of Career and Professional Development at Mercer University. Ann is both a professional singer and leadership coach. She combines her artistic and business backgrounds to create team building and individual leadership training for her clients by helping them tap into their right brain and creative capabilities. She has coached and developed plans for over 200 leaders in 10 states. And today she is going to talk to us about finding your voice, career search techniques, and I am going to turn it over to you. Attendees, as you have questions during the presentation, you can ask them anytime by typing them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen, and we will answer them at the conclusion of the presentation. Also, all of the Women in Leadership webinars are recorded and will be shared on our website. I will put the link to that website in the chat in a few moments. And Ann, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Howard. I appreciate that introduction. And thank you to all of you who've decided to tune in today and those of you who decide to watch the recording. I am here to talk to you today about finding your voice. So the reason that I've selected this as the topic is that when clients reach out to me, they are looking for some sort of shift in their career. And it usually begins with us defining a point of view for them. Who are they? So in order to explore opportunities and challenges, we need to look at your personal branding, and we need to help you find that voice. So just a few things that bring me to you today. As Professor Howard has mentioned, I have sung professionally. I am a singer first and foremost in life. And I have actually sung professionally in a number of countries. And that's a story for another day if you want to connect. I have been speaking my mind since I have been developing words. So I share that because I am a child who grew up with people saying, you cannot say everything you want to say exactly when you want to say it. Well, I took that advice to heart, but then I rose very quickly in my advertising career early on, right out of college, because I did speak up and I did say things that I might have otherwise thought, maybe I shouldn't say this. So I developed practice on how to form a brand statement and form my voice. I am hired by organizations to help them train better leaders and create better teams. I am hired by individuals to help them craft and use their voice to achieve goals. One of the main reasons I'm here in the Women in Leadership series is to speak to the women and to let you know that I have absolutely been told to stand down in professional situations. I have been told numerous times, you're not ready for something. I have been told to go get a credential. I have been told to go get a degree. And I have gotten very tired of that. I've used my voice in a very productive way in order to achieve the career goals that I'd like to achieve. Now, recently, and well, I shouldn't just say recently, but recently, and especially as many people are feeling right now, I have been told loudly and silently that work is structured not to support women. I have been very tired of that narrative. I have watched the nonverbal cues. I've experienced the nonverbal cues, the structures of offices, the structures of expectations, and things are changing. Things are very much changing in the workplace, in the world of work. And if that's good news to you, I hope that you do take advantage of that, because organizations are really taking steps to make changes that make the world of work more open to all individuals. So today, I am here to help you find your voice and craft a career that works for you. So we are going to look at that through some metaphors. So I selected 4 different areas for women's voices. First is finding your voice. Second is being heard, singing in harmony, and then the audition. And all of these are going to help answer this question: how do we find our voice in the world of work moving forward? So my first slide is inspiration from a wonderful female leader, Melinda Gates. A woman with a voice is by definition a strong woman, but the search to find that voice can be remarkably difficult. So I am not here today to say, in one or two practices, you're going to feel completely confident voicing your opinion. Not at all. Not at all. It's going to take practice. It's the search to find the voice and to use it is one that's progressive. And you'll have opportunities throughout your lifetime and career to develop that voice. And the important reason for developing that voice is because you need to control your narrative. When you don't control your narrative about who you are, what you believe in, what your capabilities are, someone else will control your narrative. A way to begin that is by crafting a strong brand statement. So you've probably heard about brand statements. You might even have one, and it might be time to bring it out again, dust it off, and see if it still suits you. So the way that we begin this is I'm going to ask you just the direct question: what do you like about you? What do you like about you?
You can answer that question by typing in the Q&A section.
Absolutely. And I would say anonymous is fine in the Q&A section. Professor Howard will not say, oh, look, Sharon from Texas put this word here. She'll just tell us words that we see or phrases. But share, what do you like about you? Now, as you're thinking about that, I'm going to give you permission, if you need it, ignore people's comments that are going through your head that are about you that you don't agree with or like.
We have two good ones, and we have, I am driven, I ask questions, I like my strong sense of innovation.
Oh, those are fantastic answers. Listen to that. Don't you hear each one of those? And I think, I want to meet that person. I want to hear more. Tell me more about that. I'd love to hear an example of that. So for those of you who had something you were thinking of typing in the Q&A, but then that voice came in, or the voice of someone else, and you hear messages to yourself like, well, other people do that better. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, can I own that? Again, I'm here to give you permission. If you need someone to give you that permission, let me do that for you. Yes, you can.
Ambitious for new challenges, and I care for the people I work with.
What lovely. These are all individuals. I'd like to hire all of you and meet all of you. This is great. So I want you to own people's comments about you that you agree with or like. And I really am giving you permission. Ignore the ones. Ignore the comments that you don't agree with or like. I learned this lesson from a former college president. She and I were co-presenting at a leadership academy for the Walton County Chamber of Commerce in Walton, Florida. And we got done presenting, and I said, should we take these evaluations? Do you want to go over these before we depart? She said, absolutely. She said, but let me take them. And she divided them into two piles, and she said, these are the ones we're going to look at. And then she tore up the other pile, and she said, these we're not even going to read. And I looked at her and I said, well, okay. Well, it turned out she only wanted to read the 4s and 5s on a 5 scale, 5 being the best. And I said, well, wait a minute. I said, how are we going to know what we need to change if we don't read the reviews that were 3s, 2s, or 1s? And she said, Anne, she said, I have done this long enough to know that if people see value in what you're doing, then I want to listen to the comments that they have. She said, there will be constructive criticism in the 4 and 5 ratings, but somebody who doesn't understand what we're doing is going to score this a 3, 2, and 1. And I'm not interested until they understand what I do in what comments they have for me. That moment was so freeing for me. I thought that was incredible. So I share these stories with you as you start developing that voice or changing it. What do you need to clear out that you've heard? And what new inspiration do you want to bring into your experience? Next is about being heard. Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. So Madam Vice President Kamala Harris uttered a phrase that many of us have wished we had said, many of us have said. She brought to national attention first, the first time she said it, it really surprised a number of people. I was actually chatting with a group during this presidential debate, a vice presidential debate, and it was so interesting, just the immediate reactions from the group. Needing to tell someone that we are communicating with, please don't speak when I'm speaking, happens all the time to women in all kinds of situations. There are other groups too that are affected by this same phenomenon. And this is something that I want everyone to know, that there's not an expectation that you're going to go from where you are today to be able to look at somebody very high up or your boss or the CEO and say, please don't interrupt me, I'm speaking. But I want you to gather a few pieces of advice from this whole experience of what happened. First of all, I purposely selected the photo of her smiling. That was the second or third time in one short period of time in a moderated debate with someone there to help ensure something like this isn't happening. She still had to stand up for herself at least 3 times, just in having somebody speak over her. But the first time, she wasn't smiling when she said, I'm speaking. She remained consistent with what she was saying and didn't alter who she was, what she was saying. And it was eventually effective. But note that there was perseverance. She had a phrase, she kept it consistent, and she also didn't apologize or become distracted. So one of the things that I hear early on from clients is, I tried in that meeting, I tried to get a word in, but they spoke over me, or I put the idea on the table and everybody ignored it, and then it got brought up by someone else later. And it's very discouraging to people. And so I want you to remember the inspiration here. If somebody's seeking the second highest position in our country in a moderated televised debate, still has to multiple times make space to do what she's been asked to come there and do, we too are going to have to make that space for us to put our point on the table. When we don't control our narrative. So we need to speak up. You need to use that voice. It does not have to be negative. So practice in low stakes situations. One of the things I love to encourage clients to do early on when they're practicing developing a voice and using a voice is I say, find somewhere low stakes, somewhere where you're not going to lose your job by speaking up. Nothing, you're not going to be excommunicated from a group that's important to you. Instead, try a low stakes situations. So I'm going to offer you this one. If you need to practice speaking up in situations where you don't feel heard or it feels awkward, try it around food delivery or try it in a restaurant. So I often mark when we have food delivered or pickup, I mark, please don't include utensils. And half the time we get utensils, half the time we don't. So if I'm out picking up food, I will, if I notice the utensils are in the bag, I will make it a point to very politely, when it's my turn, I will go back up to the counter and say, hi, I just wanted to tell you, we won't need these utensils. And I put them on the counter and I say, I mentioned that in the notes. It's fine that you didn't see that. Thanks for thinking of us and making sure we had everything. Have a great day. And I walk out. How many times have you had an order brought to your table and it wasn't what you wanted? How many times have you thought, oh, I asked for that extra side and I didn't get it? And it's like, oh, I don't want to say anything. Well, sometimes that's very considerate because you see how busy the staff is and what they're doing. But it's a really great place to practice using your voice. So another way to do that is often people dismiss the person who comes to the table. The server comes to the table and says, could I tell you about our specials? And everybody, for some reason, is embarrassed and they kind of look around. Don't be embarrassed. Be the person at the table to say, I'd love to hear your specials. And then as they are talking about them, I remember one time one of the servers saying, and this is a wonderful salad. It has both spinach and rocket in it. And I stopped and said, I'm sorry, what's rocket? And so a couple people at the table laughed, but everybody at the table afterwards said, I had no idea what that was either. I'm so glad you asked. So it's just a little point of clarification. But what you'll find is when you do speak, when you speak up, when you ask the clarification, when you say, I asked for this and I received this instead, here's how we could remedy it, thank you, someone else will appreciate you having done that. Be consistent. So in the workplace, be consistent. So if someone comes to you and asks you repetitive questions over and over again, try to provide a consistent response. Don't sidetrack. Don't change your agenda. Don't digress the conversation because they might have interrupted you. Be consistent. Continue to say what you're saying. In the case of the wonderful words, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking, there was a pause, but there wasn't a request for, let me tell you why I need to finish, or I didn't finish yet. It was just, I'm speaking. I need you to stop talking. And then I'm going to resume right where I was. No one in the room is going to feel bad, but I'm going to be courteous about this. So this can be done in a very easy way. The other thing to remember is the person interrupting has just shown you some cards. They've just revealed to you that there may be a bit of a self-belief doubt. They might be a little self-conscious. There might be something. A confident person is going to let you keep speaking. So know that you're actually in the power position when things like this happen. So own that. And the last is you have to control your narrative. Others will control it for you if you aren't there to control your narrative and to speak up. Let me tell you my operations management story. Early in my career, I worked in advertising, and I had two co-owners of an ad agency, small boutique agency where I worked. I had learned so much in my first year as their office manager right out of college. And I really knew that where I wanted to go with my career was in the client services side of the ad agency. So one of the owners one day said, come on into my office. And he said, you've been here about a year. I want to know, because we're growing as an agency, what do you think you'd like to grow into at this agency? And I was thrilled, so excited. And I'm sure I blurted out. I'm sure it wasn't eloquent. And I said, oh, I really want to work on the client side. I want to work with our clients. I love that part. And he immediately started shaking his head. He said, no. You know what? You're really good at operations. I mean, you have things set up here. They've never run this smoothly. I think you should continue running with operations. Maybe project management, but I mean, I guess when I think about it, I don't know. I don't really know that there's a lot of places you actually could go with this agency. So very sad. Left that conversation, sat at my desk. The other owner happened to walk in. She said, you don't look okay. I said, it's okay. It's okay. She said, no, it isn't. Come into my office. And I went into her office and she said, what happened? So I told her that I was called into the other partner's office and I voiced wanting to work on the account side. And he said, oh no, you're great at operations. And she burst out laughing. And she said, I'm sorry to laugh. She said, you are great at operations. She said, but you just said you want to work on the account side with clients. She said, I've been waiting for you to ask. She's like, absolutely. You'd be fantastic in that area. She's like, let's work on that plan. So I had two different people giving me two different opinions of where I could go in the agency. So if we go back to that first slide and talking about what is it about ourselves that you really like? and me giving you that permission to reject something that other people tell you you are. This is one of my examples of that. Now, I don't mind doing operations. I've been told I'm very good at operations, but I don't receive joy from that part of things. The joy I received was with connecting with the clients, connecting with the people, the strategy, the communicating between all these different groups and getting everyone on the same page. That's when I know I'm doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing. So I'll do the operations to get to that work, but my whole career didn't need to all be in operations. So I hope that's inspiring for you. All right, next we're going to talk about singing in harmony. And what does this mean? This means let's take inspiration from Elena Percival, the CEO of Women Who Code, who is actually here an Atlanta resident. I realized that if I was willing to step up and be in the spotlight, I'd be able to make everyone else around me much more powerful as well. Regardless of any faith that you might follow, there's something there in that faith or that spirituality that talks about we do not dim our light in case other people are intimidated by it. It's important to shine our own lights. In the last example I gave you in my operations story, what if the owner of that agency hadn't shown her light and walked out of the current agency she was in and started her own agency? Where might I be in my career? Her taking that opportunity to help herself shine helped me shine. So this is all about networking and being an ally. So for people who don't like that word networking, I want you to rebrand that for yourself as ally. Can you go out and build a network of allies or build a group of allies? I'll even take network out of that phrase. And singing in harmony. When I think about the people that I'm connected to, the people on LinkedIn, the people that are in my circles and in my universes, the new people that come into them from different things that I do, the ones that you resonate with, the ones where there is harmony, where there's alignment, that's your network. And sometimes it's a small group, especially if you're changing careers or you're looking to do something different. But I want you to think about that network building as part of harmony. It's a harmony. Now, in finding your voice and being part of great women leaders inside organizations, I want you to practice all of this internally too. And one of the ways to do that is promoting other women. So this is advice that you'll find on Lean In, the Sheryl Sandberg fabulous group for women. You'll find great advice there. And one is to promote, which means, can you in meetings, can you in situations, can you make sure that credit is given to who it should be given to? This is also an example of where if someone in a meeting says something, I remember having a client early on in my advertising career, and she put a great idea on the table and everyone talked around it. We were the only two women in the room. And the CEO said the exact same thing, and everyone in the room went, "Oh, this is brilliant, fantastic, my goodness, how clever," all these positives. And being a bit young and naive, but again, being outspoken, I said, "Well, that's exactly what she said early on. Wonderful, I'm glad we're all in the same place." And then I remember sitting there shaking, thinking, okay, if they fire me on the way home, maybe I can. Well, I didn't get fired on the way home. In fact, the client called the agency and said, "I would like Ann to be my account lead." And my foray into being the lead in account services began because I was willing to speak up for her. She then turned around and spoke up for me. Now, if you're in a managerial position and can take that word at its full value of actually promoting someone, please do look around. Who is the person who will develop in this job? Who is the person who's maybe been doing it that needs to be promoted? Is there a woman in your organization or another individual who might often get overlooked that you can take that extra time to help them move forward? The other aspect is challenging feedback like shrill, shrewd, all kinds of words, negative words. They're not meant complimentary. First, don't participate in that type of gossip, pure gossip. I've walked out of meetings and had coworkers nudge me and say, "Did you hear her?" And I have always, even if I might have in my mind thought they could have said it differently, I won't gossip and play that game. Instead, I can just say, well, I think she made a great point. Walk away. Don't be pulled into that. The divisiveness, the triangulation. Not at all. Not at all. Let's support each other. Celebrate. Something women do not do enough for themselves is we do not throw enough parties. We do not send enough emails. We are 2/3 less likely to ask, could we put my promotion out there somewhere? I earned this credential. I got this raise. I finished this major project. I secured a new client. I increased the client. I've retained the client longer than anyone else. We don't celebrate it. So make sure that you are pointing those things out there. Send an email. Send an email on behalf of a coworker that says, hi team, just wanted to say thanks so much to Shonda. She has led this initiative. We would not have had such a successful event without her. Thanks again, Shonda. Quick, to the point, give the shout outs, say the positive things, lift each other up. Feedback is a difficult area to go. So remember, unsolicited advice. Does everyone really want unsolicited advice? But if you can form a trusting relationship with coworkers, or you see someone who you think is potentially marginalized or quiet in the office, build trust. I spent about a year trying to build trust with a coworker, and our department was growing. New people were going to be added, and I was in continual discussions of what's the best way to grow the department. And I realized that this person's name, multiple people had a different idea of what this person wanted to do. So I reached out to her, and it took 4 times reaching out, 4 conversations of being consistent and saying, conversations are happening about who's going to do what role. I don't know that I know from you what you're interested in doing. How can I help support you and help you ensure that you get the work that you want to do when I'm in these meetings and I'm being asked who should be assigned what? It took time. It took time for trust to develop. By the 3rd time I had asked that question, it was incredible what was shared about having been burned in the past, about, I'm asking you, why are you asking this? What's in it for you? This was not negative from this person, from this woman. This woman had had real experiences that weren't positive and didn't produce the outcome that I was hoping to achieve for that person and help them gain. So don't give up on people. Just like practicing, just like if Kamala Harris, Madam Vice President, has to say more than once, I'm speaking, in order to not be interrupted. None of these things are you try it once, it didn't work, I'm giving up. Have the perseverance. Perseverance can be it can be calm, keep going. And last is sponsor. Sponsor means the behind the scenes. I, at one point in these different meetings when we were expanding the department and talking about roles, and someone said, well, this woman wants to do this. And no, I heard she wants to do this. I asked, could we ask? What is the harm in asking this person what they actually want to do? Has anyone asked? And it stopped the meeting cold. But then it turns out conversations were had with this person. So that's part of what sponsoring is. Sponsoring is pulling someone into a situation in a positive way. Let me reach out to my colleague. Even if I knew the answer she's going to say, bring her in if that's her area and what she's responsible for. Bring her in and give that spotlight. So this is part of singing in harmony, and this is how you start to grow and expand that network. This is, I think, my favorite. I called it the audition. This is Billie Eilish quote, "You're italics, I'm bold." And there's nothing like somebody who's young, who's out there, who's successful, who found themselves at a young age, literally being a global sensation. She's an incredible songwriter and producer. She's very much her own person. There are not as many pictures of her smiling. And she doesn't feel the need to smile if she doesn't want to in her photos. Isn't that wonderful from somebody young to enter into our our acknowledgement of them or our consciousness of them, truly saying, I'm just going to be who I am and sticking to that. It's amazing. So I want you, when you think about the reason I'm using the word audition is interviews. This is where all this good work tends to fall apart. I want you to remember you are bold. You are not italics. You are on a side note. The performance review or the interview are not perfunctory. They don't need to be rushed. That is a moment for bold. That is a moment for you to put on the table. This is what I bring. This is my value proposition. This is what I contribute, and I'm proud of it. So these are places where you need to practice. So I teach interviewing skills. I help many people with their interviewing skills. I have a number of clients they're really great at getting initial interviews, phone screens, they're being in that end pile, but they don't actually secure that final job, that offer. I can work with those clients to help them with how are you presenting during that part of the process. And I want to explain this, that my process of working with people comes from years of auditions. So no actor goes into an audition, no singer, no one goes in the performing arts to an audition without an incredible amount of practice. The dancer, the singer, the actor doesn't sit quietly thinking of the answer to the potential questions. They practice. It's ingrained in their muscles, in their mind, in what they're going to say. And over and over and over again, they practice. So I sometimes have clients that say, yeah, but if you're going to an audition, you either got to pick your song or, you memorized a dance piece, or they give actors what they want them to say at the audition. Well, guess what, everybody? You are going to be asked the same thing in an interview. You know what you're going to be asked. You know exactly what you're going to be asked. So that's not a valid reason for not practicing. At an interview, you're going to be asked, why should we pick you? That's your brand statement and your value proposition. The characteristics we said at the very beginning, that's what you state. They're going to ask, why do you want to work here? They're going to ask, tell me about a time you led. They're going to ask, tell me about a time you were on a team and it went well. Tell me about a time you were on a team and it didn't go well. And the last thing that they're going to ask you is they're going to say, why our company? Why do you want to work here? And then you're going to tell them why they should pick you over someone else. There it is. Don't look up 101 questions you could potentially be asked at an interview. That will just confuse you. If you have those basic categories down pat and a story to support each of them, then you know exactly what's being asked of you in that interview, and you can own that interview. It's your stage. You get to own that stage. Now, the excuses that I get lately, first of all, you are a high potential. You are a high potential. Remember that. That's bold. You're a hypo. Today, what I'm getting around interviews is, oh, but Ann, everything's changed. Now everything's on video. That's completely different. It's not completely different. Well, but half the time it's a phone screen. I mean, I know what to do in person, but I never know what to do on the phone. The medium is not relevant. There are very few changes that need to happen in what you have to say and your level of preparation, whether it's the phone, it's a video, or it's in person. The basics, the fundamentals, the traditional, the foundations stay the same. You're going to be asked these same questions. You have to smile regardless which one of these is part of it. You have to get dressed for the interview regardless of which one of these is how the interview is happening. You're supposed to get dressed for a phone interview? Yes. Yes, maybe not a suit and tie, and you do not have to wear suit and ties anymore to interviews, trust me. But you do need to be ready that day. You need to be at your best. That's what it means. And you need to be prepared with those same questions. Now, the next thing I think I am learning is there are all kinds of ways that companies interview, hire people, different types of jobs. So sometimes what I'm finding with clients is they're saying, this is all traditional. right? It's the traditional types of jobs. They want a traditional type of workplace. Most companies these days embrace that companies that are successful have innovation, diversity, equity, inclusion. That the old way of doing everything, it's really over. It's over. So you shouldn't be afraid to look for opportunities that maybe they're contract based, maybe they have flexible schedules, and you're looking for organizations that embrace this. If a manager is the only one that embraces it, then those benefits, they're not even benefits, those workplace situations could fade along with that single supporter. So, places that you can look for new ways. Fabulous organization, the Mom Project. I've had people say, but I'm not a mom. It's okay. The idea of the Mom Project is they are multiple things. They're a platform to help you feel confident in job searches, but they also seek out job opportunities from employers that don't see that there's a negative if you've had a gap in employment. They look for organizations that understand that hiring somebody new to run a project or be part of our organization breathes life and creativity and energy and could innovate our company and take it somewhere new. The Muse, founded by two incredibly dynamic women. The Muse does a very similar job that the Mom Project will do. The Muse is a great organization for finding other organizations that treat people well. Now, no organization's perfect, but they definitely weed out organizations that might have policies that aren't going to let people live their full lives. They, both of them, including Good & Co., another one to look at, all three of these run from the premise of you should be able to be your full self at work. You shouldn't have to feel like you have to hide or sneak out the door in order to go to a school performance for a child. Or if you have a parent who needs assistance, that you can go and do that. And that just makes you a better employee. So this is where the world of work is heading. So these are organizations I put in front of you as inspiration if your job search seems stagnant and the same things keep coming up for jobs or the same kinds of companies. But this morning I was on a walk with a wonderful colleague and she said, this is the great resignation. So instead of being in a great recession, we're actually right now in a great resignation. There are many, many people in front of you, or you may be one of them that said, I'm done accepting things for the way that they are. I'm going to look for a different opportunity. And they're finding them. So they are out there. One story, I want to tell you my Italian performance story to give you inspiration about practicing for interviews. So the first thing I'll say is, I know you're going to feel silly practicing for an interview. You're going to stand in a room in your house, or maybe you're in your car. And initially you're going to hear your voice and you're going to think, oh, do I sound like that? If you watch a recording of yourself, it's even worse. So know that everyone has that same reaction. Actors that have filmed movies, they often don't even see the dailies that they shot because just it's awful to see yourself. I thought I did that differently. I thought I did that better. So this is a natural part and it's not an excuse for not practicing. So I want to give you inspiration for why you need to practice and why you need to practice just those simple 5 questions for any interview. So in college, I was asked to go to the auditions for a state singing competition that then had state winners went to national, nationals went to a global competition. And I was being told that I absolutely was a front runner for the state competition, and there was no reason to think that I might not take nationals. So this early talent was identified in me and had been cultivated. I went in with 3 songs. I had 3 judges. The first judge said, we'd like you to sing the song in French, sang it in French. All was good. And then there was one more song left, and they picked the song I had been singing for years. It was an Italian song. Italian came fairly easily to me, so I was really excited to get to sing this song. So I had known the song and sung it so many times before. I had auditioned with it before. And I went ahead and I held my head high and I sang the first verse. And as I was finishing the first verse, I'm looking at the smiles on the judges' faces and I'm thinking, all right, this is working. I'm doing this. This is exciting. And I can't wait to go to nationals. They're going to be in such an exciting city. And then I tuned back in and I realized I have about 8 more notes being played before I have to come in with the second verse. I never practiced the second verse. So in 8 notes, I had to make a decision. I had to decide, do I sing the first verse again? And I thought, no, I can't give the exact same answer. I can't do that. They're going to know that I don't know the second verse. So I, again, held my head high, certainly did not feel confident inside, and I just started singing Italian gibberish. I strung together any word I could think of, short of saying the word meatball or mustacholi. I strung words together. And when I got done, I thanked them and I walked out of the room with my head held high. The door closed behind me and I burst into tears. Now, granted, I was in my early 20s. I was in college. So the confidence that you see today is not the confidence I would have had then. My team members, my fellow singers said, oh my gosh, that sounded really good. Why are you crying? What went on? And I said, I know it's okay. I just needed this to be over. Well, it took a long time for the judges to deliberate. We're all waiting in the main auditorium. The judges came in, called up 4 people. I was one of the 4 people. They gave honorable mention to 2 people. I was down to me and one other person for first and second place. And I got second place. I was mortified. I wanted to drop through that floor. I wanted to melt away. My head was buzzing. I could barely see. My ears were ringing. I wanted to cry, but I was not going to cry on that stage. So it got done. Once again, I walked off the stage and was walking to our bus to go home. And I heard someone saying, Anne, could I speak to you for 1 second? And it wasn't until they touched my shoulder that I turned around and it was one of the judges. And he said to me, Anne, I need to share this with you. You were going to be the first place winner of this competition. He said, but I felt an ethical obligation to share with the 2 other judges that you actually made up that second verse. And he was smiling. He was kind of laughing. He said, I said to them, I think because she did such a good job and neither one of you even knew that she made up that Italian, she should be the first place person. But one of the judges was adamant that that was not acceptable. He said, and we spent all that time deliberating. So I share that story with you. It's been identified to me that that could be a story about overconfidence. I see that actually as that's one of those issues of lack of preparation. Walking into that competition, not having memorized every verse and reciting every verse, I left out a key component. That's what happens to my clients when they go to their auditions or their interviews. There's something they haven't practiced. Sometimes it's as simple as, well, they asked me if I had any questions and I didn't. They answered all my questions. That's your second verse of Italian. If they say, well, they asked me about a time that I brought up something that should be changed in the company. I didn't have anything. And I didn't know what to say and I stumbled. That's their second Italian verse. So if you can have your foundations, the basics of what you know you're going to be asked to do in an interview ready to go. If my judges had said, here's a piece of music, go ahead and sing this sight unseen, they wouldn't have expected that to be as perfect. And they would have accepted it because what I'd done before would have shown that with preparation, this is the product you can expect from me. This is the performance I can give in your organization. So I hope that's helpful and I hope that that was entertaining to you. Now, let's go back over these 4 different points. So in part of developing your voice, increasing your voice, there's finding your voice, which is a brand statement. And remember our words from Melinda Gate. A woman with a voice is by definition a strong woman, but the search to find that voice can be remarkably difficult. No one's saying this is easy. You're in good company with strong women you admire by finding that voice. And your voice might not be big and bold. You might not talk with your hands. I had a client who, when we were the only two women in meetings, most meetings we were in, she was a very soft talker. She talked just like this. And she would say, well, I think the project that we're working on, and I bet what's happening right now to some of you, you can imagine happened in the meeting. Everybody leaned in more. The room got quieter because you had to quiet down. The boastfulness, the room went to a different level, and she was in charge of that room with her voice in the volume and cadence that was natural to her. So we're looking for your voice. Being heard and speaking up. Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, if she's going to be interrupted, we're all going to be interrupted. So it's not an excuse. Just keep your narrative the same. Be consistent. Don't be sidelined or sidetracked. Don't apologize. Just acknowledge and move forward, or just keep moving forward. Singing in harmony. Finding those allies. I realized that if I was willing to step up and be in the spotlight, I'd be able to make everyone else around me much more powerful as well, by Elena Percival. If we don't shine our lights, we aren't allowing the lights of other women to be shown too. So if it's difficult to motivate this for yourself, if some part of that isn't inspired by that, then you're doing this for the next person. And the audition, shining bright, your italics, I'm bold, Billie Eilish. Take inspiration from what she has cultivated for herself. All of these women are great examples of what they do is not about them and their own self-gain. It's about making the world a better place for women to be everything they can be. For some resources for you, I know today it's popular to take a picture of a resource page. So go ahead, get those cameras out, take your pictures. Lean in, 6 ways that women can champion each other at work. It's a great reminder, more suggestions. If you have more time on your hands, 50 ways to fight bias. And again, this is not about anything that is fighting in a negative sense. It's suggestions for how, in situations where you feel that there's bias, how can you help remedy that? How can you be a champion of that? I encourage you to sign up for the Mom Project, sign up for the Muse. There's no cost to you with these, but you're going to get very inspiring information, be a part of inspiring webinars, and the companies that they collect and gather are specifically looking for diversity, equity, inclusion. Elevest, the reason I put them on the list, they're about women and money. So this is about not being afraid, having a place you can go and ask questions that might seem basic. You don't have to know everything. It could be the narratives you heard growing up are not actually the way money is handled. Everybody comes from different situations. So some of us don't know anything about money when we start out. Some of us do. They're very open to all of that. So take a look at that. A dynamic founder of that organization. And then Harvard Business Review had a great article to Google just recently, and it's called Pressure Doesn't Have to Turn into Stress. So if you're feeling stress around this or exhaustion around this advice or this thought of, oh, in addition to everything else I do, now I got to pull everybody else up around with me. Pressure, if you're putting pressure or feeling pressure in an organization or in your life, it doesn't have to turn into stress. So some advice on how to go ahead and achieve without it turning into stress. And then again, applying for opportunities, go right to the employers. The Muse, Good & Co, Remotely, LinkedIn, Talent, all of those are great organizations for you to find some inspiration. So I want to thank you very much for being here today. Thank you for listening to my presentation. And if there are questions in the Q&A, Stephanie, Professor Howard, I would love to hear any of those questions.
Yeah, anyone that has questions, now is the time. Please feel free to type them in the Q&A section. Anne is a wealth of knowledge, so make sure you ask any question. Any and all questions are welcome at this time.
And I hope some of my embarrassing stories and my, admitting, feeling so defeated, crying, all of these things, I hope that inspires you so you understand whatever question you have is a good question. Any asked question is a good question.
And are there any questions that your clients consistently ask you, or it's just like everyone that comes to me asks me this one thing?
Mhm. I think that what everybody asks me is, but can I say, if they ask me who I am or what do I bring, why pick me? Can I really say I'm a leader or I'm really great at data analytics or I'm good at communicating? I mean, I am, but so they want that clarification on what do you have to have as backup to own those descriptors, those brand statement descriptors of ourselves. And so, what I always say to people is sometimes the words will come after you actually think about a work situation that you're proud of and something that you've done. So, I encourage clients, let's just talk. Just talk out loud about something that you've done at work or in another setting that you're proud of, an accomplishment. And so often from that story, when I listen to that, I can say to them, oh my goodness, I know you say that's a leadership story, and it is. But do you hear that that story is about agency, about no one did anything, but you picked up pieces, you found resources, you put it together, you got the job done. That's incredible. Everybody thinks they can get the job done, but they can't. So think about the moments. Think about the moments. And often what comes to mind is clients will say, well, first I'm just thinking about how mad I am about this situation that happened. Go ahead, get that out of your system. Get the mad out of your system. And then what you can do is you can actually work on the silver lining or reframing it in a way that you can get the really great essence out of it and talk about that.
I do have a question.
Great.
Says, as a woman in the workforce, what is the best piece of advice you have ever gotten that propelled you? And on the flip side, what is the worst piece of advice?
Oh, I love that question. The best piece of advice that I've gotten, and I've gotten it multiple times from mentors, from people who have done what I want to do long before I have. And it was in multiple situations the permission to, oh, don't listen to them. So when advice came at me, when a comment, something came my way that was defeating, they gave me that permission. They did that for me to ignore it, just ignore it. Worst piece of advice that I have gotten, I would say it's repetitive advice again. And it goes back to that original owner of that agency who felt that they knew better than I did of what my strengths were and what I should do for my career. So I think along the way, what I've learned is when people are telling me what direction to steer my career, it's often to serve their needs, what they need someone to do, or they don't want me to progress because I'm going to leave their team. So I ask for, tell me what you see. What is it about me that you see being successful in that position? Tell me, why do you see me there? I'm curious why you don't see me over, and I name the part of where I want to be. I hope that's helpful.
Another question came in. It says, how can one claim their confidence when you do not have the tangible credentials they seek, but you know you have the knowledge and skills?
I am a firm believer, and I love that. Formality is often something to hide behind, correct? A pomp and circumstance, a protocol. It's a divisive tool when used improperly. If you know you can do something, it doesn't matter who you have to commit. Do it. Do it. This is often something when clients are looking to move into the wonderful world of marketing, and they'll say, "But I don't have any experience. I haven't been hired as a marketer." What we'll do is we'll break down the simple parts of it, and I'll say, "It doesn't matter that your title wasn't a title that falls under marketing. Talk to me about the previous work you did." Now, in that work, we pick apart the pieces of what they've done. Often in marketing, I'll say, "Are you on social media? Are you can talk about that." So all you have to do to add to that is add in there that you launched this particular photo on Instagram to see, would this gather more likes. And then you launched another one to see with that one. So you ran your own test. Create the website for yourself if you're job hunting and the things that you do, or just in general. Really beef up that LinkedIn profile that shows what you did. The good news for those that don't feel like you have the credentials already in your pocket, it's how you speak about them. Most jobs, 80% of jobs are in the hidden job market. So this does not mean that somebody's got their arms around them going, ha ha, I'm not going to show this to you. What it means is only 20% of jobs ever get posted. The rest of jobs that are out there are jobs that if you are being an ally, if you are harmonizing, networking, then people get to know you. They know your capabilities. They know just from a few conversations with you, you know what, that's an interesting person who I think could be a good fit for this job. Let's see if they're interested, and let's put them into the applicant pool. So who you are and how you present can help fill in those gaps. I'd also like to add as a side note, another common question that I get from people is, should I go back and get a degree, a certificate, this or that? So one of the things that I really want to make clear is, if you're saying that because you're applying for jobs and you see every job in the field you're looking for says MBA or equivalent, then it's clear that job is not going to happen easily. It's going to be really difficult to get that without the MBA. But if you are seeing that there are jobs out there, or you're getting rejections from jobs and they're listing, oh, you didn't have the degree, or the person we picked had the MBA and you don't have the MBA. That employer is not saying to you, had you had the MBA, yep, you sure would have been picked. So let's think about first, what is it that you want to do? What are you trying to achieve? Don't just start adding credentials, because sometimes employers don't want the credential until you can also show that you've implemented what that credential means. So the experience is as valid as the credential. So that's something to definitely think through, and a great reason to contact your career services department at your alma maters. Contact career services. There's typically alumni career services. There's always current student career services. They should be someone you visit on a frequent basis, and they can help you with that because it's progressive. There's no one conversation answer.